Hey everyone, welcome to Be the Change. My name is Lily Mott, and today I'm going to be talking about how change comes when it is sustainable. My guest this week is Gianella Bejar, and she is a social entrepreneur and the founder of EVE, which stands for Educate, Voice, Empower. EVE focuses on empowering young people to get involved in feminist advocacy, and I got to talk with Gianella about the process to create and develop the organization. So, without further ado, let's get started with this episode featuring Gianella Bejar.
Hi, my name is Gianella Bejar, and I am a high school student in Ontario, Canada. I am a social entrepreneur, and I'm 17 years old.
That's a great start, and I would love to go deeper and have you tell me more about what inspired you to get started with your work as a social entrepreneur. Can you tell me about the path that got you interested in this work?
So I've always been into entrepreneurship as well as computer science. Being a girl, it's difficult to enter the field because it is male dominated. So as I grew older, I saw that becoming an issue. Last year, I decided to fast track one of my courses. So right now I'm in grade 12, but in grade 11, I decided to take grade 12 computer science. In that class, I was one of two girls, and I saw there was a different treatment when I was talking to my teacher, different to what my teacher had for my male colleagues. So I saw this becoming an issue, and I saw it worsening as I wanted to start a computer club at my school. Our computer club, I found myself having to prove myself to be more than just the social media designer. I had ideas, I wanted to bring things to the table, and they weren't listening to me. So a year ago, I decided to start Eve as a feminist empowerment association. We're a grassroots organization, and we look to empower students to speak their voice, showcase their abilities, and show the world who they are.
I think that's such a great story, and I'm so glad that you created your organization from the challenges that you faced in your classes and the computer science club. So, tell me more about Eve. I'd love to know more about what you're working on today with the organization, how you developed it over the years. Give me the whole story about Eve.
Yeah, of course. So from the beginning, it was a little blurry of exactly what we wanted to do. We knew we wanted to empower students, but how do you do that on a large scale? And especially when so many teenagers are facing such different problems. So we decided to start with social media, educating people. Look at this social issue. How do you see yourself fit into this? Do you see yourself as a victim, or perhaps you can become an ally for those who are victims in these social issues? So we decided to become a hub for educational resources for social issues. Now we find ourselves taking on more of this community involvement aspect where we want to be directly involved in the community. Earlier this year, well, September, we had a fundraiser in Toronto, downtown Toronto, where we collected period products and we were able to donate that to a shelter nearby. Now, in the new year, we're looking to evolve into more of a research organization so we can collect information directly from our community members and create solutions that actually will impact them.
That's so interesting. So, as far as the plans for the future, do you have any projects that you're hoping to develop or work on soon with Eve?
Yeah, so these research projects are definitely going to be a challenge, especially being high school students. We don't have a lot of experience in that field. I feel like that's something more you explore in your university years or masters. But with this, we look to really collect data from our community members. And with that, we hope to create very specific programs and events similar to series that we have had before. An impactful series that we had before was a relationships based event series. And that was really impactful because it showed the importance of having healthy relationships in the workplace, between friends, romantic, and other types of relationships.
That's a really interesting idea. So, as far as these projects that you're working on and the research you're conducting, what are some of the changes that you're hoping to see through this work that you're doing? What kind of impact are you hoping to make through all of this work with Eve?
With these projects, I hope that the outcome can be that students feel empowered to take their own action. In the end, I want a domino sort of effect. I don't want this to be the end of solution. I have found that these opportunities of volunteer where students can explore themselves and figure out what they're good at, their strengths, and how they can optimize it has been really impactful. I don't want to say names, but volunteers from, we have many volunteers, but two specific ones have actually gone off to start their own organizations. And that's something so incredible to see because I was terrified to start my own organization. And I'm sure it wasn't easy for them either. But seeing other students take their own action empowers them to do the same. So that's really the big hope of this. We want to do these projects and we want to do these events, but it's all to encourage other students to do their own events and projects.
That's a great idea. And I think this cycle of empowerment is a really powerful idea that seems like it could be very sustainable and exciting to watch in the future. So, as far as your own driving motivations to create change and be involved in this work, would you say that you have any words of wisdom or maybe like a motto that you think about a lot or that motivates you to continue with this change making process? Is there anything like that that comes to mind for you?
So that's a really hard one. I think something that I live by is that everything will go the way it needs to. So sometimes it's not the way you want it to, but I live by this motto in the way that the organization's not hasn't always been easy to manage, right? Especially being a student in high school, I'm still figuring out how to manage my schoolwork and extracurriculars because I need to be involved in other activities as well as sports and all of these things. So it's hard to manage it all. But in the end, everything has gone the way it should have. And maybe in the moment it didn't feel right, or I wanted something else, and I just didn't have the motivation. Whatever I was feeling in that moment, in the end, now we've reached a point where things are going well. And we are currently on a pause. And again, that's for the best of reasons. We're going to come back and we're going to do amazing things. Everything will go the way it needs to. And that applies to universities. I've just applied to my universities and I've never felt more safe in my decisions. I know whichever of my choices, I'm going to do great. That's something I truly believe, right? I'm excited to enter a new stage. And again, it applies to everything.
I think that's great advice to live by, especially the part about how everything that happens might not be exactly what you want to happen, but it's the way it's meant to happen. And I think that's an important distinction to make. So I have one more question for you. Lots of young people, especially high school students and college students, as you'll soon be, want to create change and they want to make a difference, but they may not know how to get started with that work. Do you have any advice for those people who may be listening?
I would say start small. There's no need to already, like, if you're trying to start a movement, you don't need to go out to the streets and protest all the way. Start small, learn, educate yourself, talk to your friends about it. Look to mentors that you have in your life, such as your parents or teachers or trusted adults, and look at the resources you have at hand. And apart from that, really do just take that first step because it can't get any simpler than that. All that matters is that you do take action, plan what you need to, but it doesn't have to be perfect, and everything will go well.
I really enjoyed this conversation with Janella, and I think the quality that struck me most about her was her optimism. She was so persistent in saying that everything will go the way it's supposed to, and I think that's just such a positive outlook to have on life. I think Janella's work with Eve is also just so optimistic and exciting because her organization has become this sustainable cycle of change making, and I'm excited to follow it and see where it goes. Gianella said that her goal with Eve is to continue to inspire other young people to also get involved in activism, advocacy, or other forms of change making. And she's already seen some of the members of her organization create their own projects. Then, hopefully, they'll continue to inspire other young people to make change in their own ways, and the cycle will continue. I think Gianella's work with Eve is so exciting because of this change-making snowball effect, and I think her story is the perfect example of how change comes when it is sustainable. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and you can find Gianella on Instagram at gianella.bejar to get connected with her. You can also find Eve on Instagram at eve.advocate to learn more about the work the organization is doing. If you want to talk about anything I mentioned, please reach out to me by email at lily@bethechangepodcast.org or on Instagram at bethechangepodcast. Tune in for my next episode, but until then, be the change you wish to see in the world. Bye, guys.